Good evening and welcome to our roundup of today's LG Super Racing Weekend FIA GT round here at Oschersleben in eastern Germany, in the former East Germany, just south and east of Berlin. The track not that old and primarily known as a motorcycle racing track. It's played host to the FIA GTs and the LG Super Racing Weekend for quite some time now with great success. This round 9 of the championship, just one more to go in Dubai. And the Maseratis were out to see if they could do better than they did in their debut last time out. So here we are in Oschersleben, round 9 over this weekend, FIA GTs. And Maserati were out to prove themselves this time. This man, Johnny Herbert, former GP racer and sports car race, taking us around the track.
Hi, I'm Johnny Herbert. Welcome to the 9th round of the LG Super Racing Weekend here in Germany, and come with me for a lap. Well, into 5th gear in my lap of Oschersleben. Into turn 1 and turn 2, into 3rd gear, over the curb, 2nd gear. The car is really hard on the tyres around these corners, very, very long, and accelerating hard out to the next corner. Turn 3, again, another hairpin, very, very long in 2nd gear once again. You can see with the lock, it's very hard on the tyre. 4th gear, long left. It's like a triple left-hander through this corner. Very, very difficult to get the car to settle down. Into 2nd gear for turn 5. Accelerating out. In 3rd gear through this quick chicane. Very important to get the proper line here for the exit on the back straight. Coming up to turn 8, the Shell S's, the right-hander into 3rd gear, keeping as tight as you can, bit of a kick, over the curb on the left, accelerating up, down back into 3rd gear for the right-hander, using the very, very wide, back down into 2nd gear before we exit onto the pit straight. Well, that's my one lap of Oschersleben. We now have 3 hours racing, so sit back, enjoy, grab a beer. Hopefully we're going to put on a good show for you, and hopefully I can see you on the podium at the end.
Well, Maserati may be the new breed of supercar in the FIA GTs, but what was very evident this weekend, that all through free practice and qualifying, it was a weekend for the Celines. It had been dry and hot all the way through for qualifying. Unfortunately, just come the race, it was extremely wet. People opting to take full wets, intermediates, and some even on slicks. Gullin and Capillari leading the championship from Bobet and Gardel. And in the NGTs, Emmanuel Collard and Stefan Ortelli ahead of Sascha Masson and Lucas Lohr. Sascha Masson it was who'd put them on pole in the NGT class. And Walter Lechner Jr. on pole in the GT class in the Conrad Celine. BMS Scuderia Italia leading the championship by a country mile from GPC Giesi. JMB Racing, then coming Vitaphone Racing, the first of the Celine teams. In NGT, there's Freisinger Yukos team on 114 from the Freisinger Motorsport team on 65.5 points. Then GPC Giesi again running their 360 monitors. Well, this is Walter Decker Jr. on pole, and you can see changing from intermediates to slicks. This really was going to be a very testing time. The Celines had been very quick all the way through practice and qualifying. The Maseratis struggling in morning warm-up when it was wet. Bertolini and Salo the best placed of them on the 2nd row of the grid, qualifying 4th. Walter Lechner Jr. then, Tony Salo and Franz Conrad on position 1 with Fabrizio Gullin and Luca Capillari on 2nd. Then it was Kaufmann, Wall and Roberti, followed by the first of the Maseratis, Bertolini and Salo. Tommy Erdos there with Mike Newton in the Celine. and everybody very careful to tiptoe their way around the track. If this was a good race for Capellari and Golin, they could sew up the championship here today, even with one round left in the untested territories of Dubai. But the big question was, would they all get round the first few laps with a rapidly drying track on their tyre choice? There was an even split between intermediates, full wets, and even some slicks. Volta-Lechner Jr. in particular, the leading Conrad, electing to go for slicks and try and get some advantage on the other cars. You could see just how tight it is at Oschersleben. There are the two Dams Lamborghinis, and even a Viper still from Zwan Racing. Coming up to take the lights then, this was the moment of truth, and you could see just how much of a slide Volta-Lechner Jr. got on, allowing Capellari and Golin to go ahead of them. Just behind them, the Graham Nash Celine. But easily capitalizing on that was Bertolini's Maserati, slipping through into third, whilst Volta-Lechner Jr. slips down to second behind Capellari and Golin, steaming away on their wet tyres. Even so, some of the NGT cars who'd elected for intermediates having loads of trouble. Vitelli going off very early. The Maserati obviously losing pace to the front two cars, and holding up the Kaufmann Wall Rebetti Celine. Well, an early off for Stefan Daoudi in the Ferrari 575 Maranello. And Volta-Lechner Jr. pulling away quite substantially from the Bertolini wet-shod Maserati. The Maserati really a new concept in supercars and GTs here. Lots of controversy about its aero package, which is deemed to be a little too extreme. And in fact, next year there will be limits on what size wing this car can run. Terrible fears that they would do a Porsche and enter this championship, or a Mercedes, and just wipe the board. Well, on their first time out last time in Imola, they didn't really capitalize on their engineering advantages, and in the wet here they were having trouble. On board with Johnny Herbert is your inset picture in the number 34 AF Corsa Maserati. Well, trouble for the 550 Maranellos as well. Philip Pater, the Austrian driver, spinning off into the gravel. Meanwhile, Volta-Lechner Jr. His slicks obviously the right choice. The Graham Nash Motorsports car of Paolo Roberti, as Franz Conrad looks on to watch Volta-Lechner Jr. Still having trouble trying to get past the Maserati of Bertolini. And it was all action with the 550 Maranellos as well. This car number 1, on the right-hand side of your picture, Matteo Bobbi and Gabriele Gardel, had qualified 4th fastest. Sadly, on their charge, they managed to put out several cars on the way. That the Stefan Daoudi 575 Ferrari. But the number 1 car, having qualified 4th, was forced to make an engine change and had actually started from the back of the grid. So Matteo Bobbi and Gabriele Gardel on a real charge, right the way through the field. Wearing an uncharacteristic white helmet. They're testing out new cooling systems for the desert circuit at Dubai, which pumps cold air around the helmet and around the suit to keep them cooler in the baking environment of a GT car. Well, battles are plenty, including the Dams run Lamborghinis, both running reasonably well at this time. Starting right behind each other, halfway down the grid, Jean-Denis Delatraz sharing with Andrea Piccini and Pepe Gabbiani with Ortiz. On board with Philip Pater. And Gabriele Naspetti being passed smoothly and cleanly by one of the Dam's cars, that the Jean-Denis Delatraz and Andrea Piccini car. Walter Lechner Jr. leading at this time from Bertolini's Maserati by over a second. Roberti in third. Johnny Herbert's car right down to seventh, struggling with the conditions. The second of the Maseratis was not at home at all. Matteo Bobbi's car making it right up to 10th from the back of the grid, carving its way through the NGT cars. Roberti in the blue liveried Maserati being pressed very hard by Roberti in the GSM Celine, Bertolini I should say, in the Maserati. On board with Johnny Herbert in the second of the Maseratis, and you can see that for a big GT car he's having to control all that horsepower. Roberti in the GSM Celine really applying the pressure. Let's go back and have a quick look at the start, and you can see just how much traction is being lost by Walter Lechner Jr. with slicks on, having to concede the place to Luca Capellari on a great start by Bertolini. And a quick replay of Capellari and Golin running off very early in that lap, allowing Lechner Jr. to go through. The Austrian driver making the best use of that mistake. And Philip Pater just getting caught out by the conditions. Well, the Kaufman Hall, Roberti, Graham Nash Motorsport. Celine having a right ding-dong battle with the much newer technology, much vaunted Maserati. Roberti hassling from all his worth, lights blazing, and that car, the Graham Nash Celine, doing more racing as a GT car than just about any other car on the grid. Week in, week out, it's doing service from one championship to another. Oschersleben, one of the newer circuits, is being used, doesn't have the history of Imola or Monza, and primarily built as a motorcycle racing track, but has become a firm favourite on the LG Super Racing weekend with tight, close action, the European Touring Car Championship, as well as this, the FIA GT Championship. Bertolini then having less than 0.05 of a second advantage over Roberti in the Celine. It certainly was the Celine's day, and it wasn't just Graham Nash Motorsport. Ray Mallock Limited, Ray Mallock Racing in the red and white livery cars had two in your background there. First one being piloted by Britain's Chris Goodwin, and then Tommy Erdos sharing with another Briton, Mike Newton, and running very fast indeed. But this is a track where you have to take every advantage you can. Lots of corners and very difficult to pass. Roberti wasn't about to let Bertolini get away and let him out of his sight. And still the battle raged on. Finally, Roberti diving down the inside at the end of the back straight into the tight right-hander and the left fast part of the circuit, allowing his corner speed to carry him through on the ever-drying line here. Meanwhile, in the NGT class, haven't seen much of this so far. It's the Vasiliev-driven Yukos-backed Freisinger Motorsport Porsche leading the NGT class. From Peterson in the number 59 car and Stefan Ortelli. Well, the track drying out and the action becoming a little more fast and furious. A whole load of pit stops. We're going to change things soon. Welcome back. We join the FIA GT Championship Round 9 here at Oschersleben in lap 8 with Walter Lechner Jr. in the leading car. The Conrad Motorsport Celine SR7, just passing one of the NGT cars. And the track drying out substantially and very quickly as Fabrizio Golin comes into the pits. Regular change and onto slicks, as you can see. Walter Lechner Jr. had qualified for his 6th pole. Intermediates coming off. Full wets, in fact, coming off. And slicks going on. The number 28 car of Paolo Roberti. The Graham Nash Motorsport Celine with the big Union flag on the side coming into the pits. On board now with Johnny Herbert coming in the Maserati. That left Fabrizio Golin pretty much clear out in front until the whole round of pit stops had finished. The Celines have been super quick all weekend. In fact, Lechner Jr. taking his 6th pole of the season, as we just mentioned, showing he's indeed one of the fastest GT and sports car drivers in the world. Really doing himself great favours in this series. The Vitaphone car of Uwe Altzen running very fast indeed, making tremendous progress, sharing that car with Michael Bartels. Altzen has been super quick right the way through the series. And this car superbly prepared. Vitaphone Racing Celine S7. German run, German backed. And at this point in the race, absolutely flying. Here going fast, Patrick Pater. Philip Pater, sorry. Maserati's in the pits and going through their regular change. They had been leading this round 9 of the championship until they pitted. And things seem to be going reasonably well for Maserati this time. Off come the intermediates, on go the slicks. Not so good for the Dams Run Lamborghinis though. Beppe Gabbiani, the ever-popular Italian driver, who was racing with Racing for Holland last year in the Sports Car Championship. And a great character, shedding tyres right, left and centre. Bits of rubber flailing against the bodywork. And opening his door just to signify he's in trouble, really. Not that you needed it, you could see it. And having to limp back to the pits to change that tyre. The big problem, of course, how much bodywork would be destroyed by flailing carcass. Meanwhile, on the track, the Vitaphone Celine was really flying. As Beppe Gabbiani's car starts to shed bits of rubbish all over the place, this car had taken the lead. Moving very, very well through the pack. It had only started halfway down the grid and moved its way up very smoothly. Michael Bartels at the wheel. But then you can't leave debris on the track. Something is going to happen. And the number 7 Celine of Erdos and Newton going one side, whilst the Svan Racing Viper goes the other. So the safety car had to come out. Safety car and Maserati as well. Well, back at the restart then, at lap 20. Everybody concentrating up together, and the safety car coming in, racing underway again, and it's that number 5 Celine S7 of Vitaphone Racing taking the advantage over the Carl Wendlinger and Tarso Marquez, driven 550 Maranello. In fact, that's a 550 with the increased bodywork changes. With the new numbers 575 just after it. By lap 22, things were going a little bit south for the Conrad Racing team. They led so well early on with Walter Lechner Jr. and their tyre choice, but then they were forced to come into the pits for a drive-through penalty, and that for working on the car after the 5-second board had been taken up to leave. The stewards coming down very heavily on infringements here at Oschersleben, following some very strange decisions and controversial decisions in previous rounds. The stewards were determined to make sure that the letter of the law was applied here at Oschersleben, and Walter Lechner Jr.'s car and Franz Conrad's car being shared with Tony Seiler, just falling foul of the stewards on that occasion. Leader in the NGT class by this time was Stefan Ortelli and Emanuele Collard. Had a 1.5 second gap over Christian Pescatori's Ferrari. 360 Modena still not able to live with the pace of the Porsches. Good driving by Ortelli and Collard, who had qualified pretty high up in the second, in fact, in the NGT class, but slipped backwards at the start, just struggling to cope with the horsepower and the slippery conditions. Pescatori and Voss, though, were hanging in there. In the number 62, 360 Modena. And now a totally dry race. Only if you got off the line was there a problem. Third in NGT class was the pole-sitting NGT Porsche 996 GT3 of Sascha Maassen and Lucas Luhr. Lucas Luhr, along with Mark Lieb, one of the drivers who's been brought through the Porsche Academy system. Sascha Maassen, the Belgian sometime Formula 3000 driver, doing very well indeed. Unfortunately, not capitalizing on their best placing, which was pole position, and chasing hard to try and make up ground on Christian Pescatori and Vincent Voss in the 360 Modena just in front of them. That then the Sascha Maassen and Lucas Luhr car. Ortelli leading in NGT from Pescatori and Voss. Sascha Maassen and Lucas Luhr third in NGT at this point. Welcome back, lap 40 here at Oschersleben. The Vitaphone Racing Celine S7 leading in that car you are looking at now, the number 17575 of Tarso Marquez and Karl Wendlinger. And right behind the number 2 car of Capellari and Golin, they are the people challenging for the championship. Those two drivers could sew it up at the end of today's race. Wendlinger and Marquez, though, trying their very hardest to keep them behind them. Great racing from the Ferraris. Not such good times for this Ferrari. Gianni Morbidelli having trouble. The front left tyre and suspension has gone. And struggling down the pit straight and pulling off to the side. Gianni Morbidelli, former F1 pilot in the 575. Parking it up. That's the end of his race today. I brought the yellow flags out, which I'm sure didn't please Capellari and Golin. Their car wanting desperately to get past Karl Wendlinger's very, very wide 575 just in front of them. Meanwhile, the Vitaphone Racing S7 looking clean and tidy and very fast. Oh well, you can't win them all. Gianni Morbidelli knows all about that. Well, at this point it looked like it really was going to be a day for the Salines. Uwe Elton has been fast throughout the entire championship. Walter Lechner Jr. had put pole. Michael Bartels driving with aplomb and speed. And it looked as though the Maseratis, much vaunted before they came into the championship, were not going to get a look in. This car, of course, getting a lot more development and had terrible reliability problems, first of all, especially with the engine overheating. But now the teams running the S7, like Vitaphone and Ray Mallock Racing, and also Graham Nash Motorsport, have turned it into a real race winner. And it looks nice in those colours as well. So Michael Bartels coming in for his pit stop as the leader at that time. Mechanics not allowed to do anything to the tyres until the car is refueled. The refueling rig on the left-hand side there you can see. Drivers are allowed to get in and out, and they're allowed to help each other get in and out. In many cases they have to, with the seat inserts coming in and out, fitting particular drivers. Only when all the refueling is done can new tyres be put on. Not much good luck for Livio Calderari and Lilian Brenner's car. And this what happened, a collision with the Svan Racing Viper, which had already lost a door, as you can see. Had left the rear left tyre in a right state. And now Lilian Brenner having to bring it in very slowly. What a mess that was. And they got even more of a mess as the carcass shed completely and now running virtually on the rim. The number 3 550 Maranello, which had qualified only about halfway down the grid. Livio Calderari and Brenner sharing this car, and gradually working its way up, was in real problems. Meanwhile, the Capillari and Golin car was desperate to stay out of trouble and avoiding all the debris on the track. That the carcass of the number 3 car. Both cars being run by BMS Scuderia Italia. This is the number 1 car. Matteo Bobbi and Gabriele Gardel having to work very hard from the back of the grid and change an engine. This then the gap. Fabrizio Golin in the lead, having still to make a pit stop with a 1.5 second advantage over Tommy Erdos. And you can see just how much debris is being thrown around the track during this tight and very twisty race. If they could finish second or higher, they would win the championship today. 10 points on offer, and going into one last round in Dubai, anything could happen. So Golin and Capillari desperate to keep the advantage and finish very high up. Well, thank goodness there was no more bad weather. There was enough damage as it is. Well, having run so well and having slipped back to 5th, having had a drive-through penalty, Walter Lechner Jr., Franz Conrad and Tony Seiler's car had slipped off, just catching the edge of the curbs. Able to restart though. Things going from bad to worse for Conrad. And just look at the damage inflicted on the bodywork by flailing rubber here. Right down on the rim for the Lilian Brenner, Enzo Calderari and Livio Carr. Stefano Livio, third driver, sharing with them. Number 3 car being run by Care Racing. In fact, all the cars number 1, 2 and 3 marked are 550 Maranellos, and this 550 Maranello getting a new set of boots, but it had affected their chances of moving higher up the order. Number 33 car, the Bertolini Salo car, into the pits. Regular stops and changes. Not much really affecting the Maserati. It had dealt with the wet and slippery conditions, which it didn't like during warm-up, and managed to pull itself back together again, and was slowly and steadily moving up the order. We'll restart after a safety car was brought out for the debris on the track, and the Carl Wendlinger Tasso Marquez 575 leading them out. The 575 Maranello in uncustomary black colours, and there is that ever-improving car of Johnny Herbert and Fabrizio Di Simone. The sister car of Bertolini and Salo also improving. They have an all-star lineup and a big budget AF Corsa, but never easy for a new car to enter the championship. Carl Wendlinger running very wide indeed and allowing the number 34 car through. Johnny Herbert taking as much advantage of that as possible. And now chasing down on the Philip Pater 575 Maranello. This car based on the Ferrari Enzo, of course. Same engine block, same chassis, different bodywork, different aero package. It all seeming to come together at Oschersleben. Fingers were being crossed by the AF Corsa team that both cars would make it to the end, and at least one of them would be on the podium. Down through third and fourth, Fabrizio Di Simone waiting to get in the car, and Johnny Herbert pits. Meanwhile, Uwe Alsen and Michael Bartels running very high in the number 5 car when the rear left suspension broke, pitching the car sideways and parking it in a very nasty position indeed. Uwe Alsen pushing very hard. Here we go, look at that rear left. Suspension breaks. Rear wheel steers it somewhere else entirely.
I think there was a suspension failure at the rear on the left side. Uwe was complaining quite early that something is not correct on the car. So and then for this reason, when it breaks, we spun in the gravel. And I mean, it's a big shame because I think it was possible to win the race. We was performing very well. And we have to investigate now what happened exactly. But it's really frustrating because we had the big hope to fight for the second place in the championship, but I think now it's over.
Well, out of first and out of the race for Vitaphone for the moment. The number 99 car, the car of Sascha Masson and Lucas Luhr, now ahead of Stefan Ortelli and Emanuele Collard. In the NGT class, Porsches 1 and 2, the Vasiliev Fomenko car slipping back down the order, the number 77 Porsche 996 GT3, and Freisinger Motorsport running both these cars, backed by Yukos, the Russian oil giant. Really showing once again the preparation is everything for Freisinger. Their confirmation then that Johnny Herbert's Maserati leading after 51 laps, with the Sascha Masson Lucas Luhr car in the NGT class up to second overall. Hard times for the number 62 Pescatori and Vincent Vos car, Christian Pescatori. And Vincent Vos working very hard indeed to stay in the 100 all. Down on lap 54, and the other Maserati, the Bertolini Salo car, moving up the order as well. Running smoothly and quickly past Capillari and Golin. to take 4th place overall with just 35 minutes left on the clock. Well, Capillari and Golin not prepared to fight too hard. They have bigger fish to fry. They are looking at a FIA GT Championship and not just a race win. More important for Salo and Bertolini to try and bring Maserati home on the podium, and if possible, for a win. Meanwhile in NGT, the Sasha Maas and Lucas Luhr car still leading Ortelli and Collard round, but Ortelli and Collard not giving up. Stefan Ortelli has a dreadful record here at Oschersleben, shedding tyres and wheels all over the place, looking a little more smooth today, despite an off earlier in the race when he was struggling with horsepower over grip. These two NGT cars being snuck up on behind by the Maserati, looking resplendent in blue, having spent so long out of sports car racing. Bertolini and Salo were really on the charge. Mika Salo, the Flying Finn, former Tyrrell driver, former sometime driver for Ferrari, and it's that Ferrari link that has led him to the Maserati sports car team, having had a couple of runs last year and doing a fabulous job, really powering away from the opposition now. On lap 57, on board with the leader at the moment. This is the Di Simone Johnny Herbert car, and all getting a little bit tense. And all getting a little bit tense further down the field. Number 8, Chris Goodwin driven car, trying to get past Capillari and Goodwin. Golin to steal 2nd place and T-burning Golin. Chris Goodwin, the British driver, muscling his way past. Lap 62 here and round 9 at Oschersleben, and the two Ferraris, number 1 and 2, the Matteo Bobbi and Gabriele Gardel car, fighting tooth and nail with Capillari and Golin. Bobbi and Gardel not prepared to give up the championship without a fight, and slipping ahead of the Capillari Golin car. Meanwhile, number 34 Maserati has pitted. The number 34 car with Fabrizio Di Simone on board now, changing with Johnny Herbert just after the pit stop, was leading.
I'm sure if you can see
slipped away.
What's happening there on the screen, but looks like Fabrizio Di Simone is slowed down. Do you happen to know why?
I know as much as you. I was sitting next to you, so no, hopefully it's a quick thing, but I think it's a shame that it's happened, obviously, where it's happened, because it's going to take, loses a lot of time on track.
Thank you.
Well, and lose a lot of time on track it did. Di Simone having to crawl right the way round, and that put their sister car, the number 33 car of Bertolini and Salo, in the lead. 2nd place at this time was Goodwin and Forbes in the Ray Mallock Racing Celine S7. And you've just seen Matteo Bobbi's and Gabriele Gardel's car. Particularly Matteo Bobbi at the wheel, fighting very hard with Caparelli and Golin to take 3rd place off them. So Maserati, Celine, and then through into the first of the Ferraris. Mallock Racing and liveried Celine S7s have been fighting all the way through. Goodwin and Fontes making it a ding-dong battle, and Fontes managing to gain 2nd so far, 29 seconds back on Salo. Well, lap 80, really out towards the end of the race now, and Mika Salo and Andrea Bertolini showing everybody else the way home. Well, we wondered how long it would be before one of these Maseratis managed to take of first place and possibly a win, as Carl Wendlinger decided to go gravel trapping and cut the grass on the way out. The Vitaphone Celine, you can see, was back on track, having managed to be fixed from nowhere in the standings. And then Jean-Denis Delatraz and the second of the Dams run Lamborghinis out. That is terminal. Lap 102. And car number one of Matteo Bobby fighting very, very hard just behind Carl Wendlinger's car. You'd seen on grass cutting just now. And trying to get past to maintain advantage over Capillari and Golin. Matteo Bobby teaming up next year with a top rank driver. As the Maseratis have come in, there's been a lot of shuffling of the pack of drivers. Everybody wants the best team possible because they know they will have to get every advantage possible with the new wave of supercar coming in. Wendlinger making that car extremely wide, and in the end, Bobby trying to muscle past, Wendlinger trying to turn in, and a little more than exchanging paint as they came around the back section of the Oschersleben track. Bits of bodywork being shed. And sadly, that was having a deleterious effect on Matteo Bobby's car. And gradually falling away from the 575 of Wendlinger and Tasso Marquez. Bits of bodywork and sub trailing all over the ground. And eventually not being able to hold the corner. Matteo Bobby trying just a little bit too hard and paying the price for it.
I think that Matteo is pushing really hard to try to find the second position, and it's race, so this was a contact, maybe a little bit hard, and I hope to don't compromise the race because we did a really good job fighting for the last position until third, second. It's a great place, and for us it's good to try to finish second in the championship. So I hope to finish the race like this because now the splitter is damaged, so I really don't know.
So problems for the number 33 car, the Mikasalo, Andrea Bertolini, Maserati sailing serenely on, much better off in the dry conditions than the wet. No bed splitters on this car. Leading GT class and not very far from the end. This car that promised so much and had so much argument about whether it should be entering the GT class, especially after the Porsches and the Mercedes had almost wrecked the privateer element in GTs so many years ago. Fantastic bits of engineering, wonderful racing cars, but still quite different in concept to one of these type of GT cars we're riding on board with now, Capillari and Golin in the 550 Maranello. Capillari and Golin just concerned with bringing it to the end. The championship is almost in the bag for them. Back with NGT. Sasha Mass and Lucas Law in the number 99 car. Comfortably leading over Stefano Telli and Emanuele Collard, with Christian Pescatori driving the GPC Givis 360 Maranello, tucked up in third place. Well, a weekend that had started so well for the Celines. We had one really fast running car now, that the car of Chris Goodwin and Fontes. Well, you've just seen go through your picture, in fact. The Volta-Lechner Jr. driven car had gone out, and then this happened. The number 28 car of Kaufman, Wall and Roberti. Jamie Wall at the wheel, parking it up. The Graham Nash Motorsports car suffering terminal failure. last lap with just 1 minute to go. Maserati cruising towards their first sports car victory in, wait for it, 47 years. But it's never over till it's over. And certainly Mika Salo and Andrea Bertolini taking it very, very easy towards the end. Another car taking it easy towards the end, the Capellari and Golin Ferrari. All they want to do is get to the end. I tell you, Bobby's car no longer in the hunt, just sitting in front of the Maserati there. And very wisely letting it through rather than trying to contest another space. Well, so much work has gone into this Maserati, based on the Enzo, 2 years in the making. But victory in their second race only. Andrea Bertolini and Mika Salo taking victory in the race, but this pairing of Luca Capellari and Fabrizio Golin taking their victory in the championship. Marvellous victory for Maserati and a great victory for Capellari and in the championship.
Car is good, but you need to have a good team to use the situation for you, and also you need to be reliable and be consistent in the race, and that's what we are. And we are not the fastest car, clearly. Other cars were going a lot quicker, and but we are consistent and we don't screw up.
Consistency, the name of the game in GT racing, any sort of endurance racing. You know what it's like. You've got to get to the end to win. Bertolini and Salo then taking the victory. Golin and Capellari second at 1 lap. Chris Goodwin and Han Fontes another lap back. Carl Wendlinger and Tasso Marquez in fourth. In NGT, Sasha Masson and Lucas Lohr ahead of Stefano Ortelli and Emanuele Collard. Christian Pescatori and Vincent Voss taking third spot. Finally, Vasiliev and Fomenko coming in fourth, having led early on. And the Reed brothers from Germany in fifth. So victory goes to Maserati for the first time in 47 years in a sports car race. But it's this pairing of Capellari and Golin adding 10 points to their championship total, taking an unassailable lead into the last round in Dubai. 80 points they have in total now. There we are. Fabrizio Golin, Luca Capellari, 80 points each. Gabriele Gardel and Matteo Bobbi on 58.5. Carl Wendling on 46.5. And in NGT, Collard and Ortelli lead on 82 from Sasha Masson and Lucas Lohr. Still all to play for in the NGT class.
It's great. Now I'm a little bit confused. So many things happened today, and it's great. With 41 to win the title for me is a dream, you know. And thank you for before to my friend Fabrizio, was fantastic, and all the team, Scuderia Italia, all the mechanics, all the people they did so a great job. It's unbelievable.
Yes, indeed.
Beh, l'incubo è finito.
The nightmare is finished, says Fabrizio Golin. It's incredible, I can't explain this feeling. It's my first title. Last year we missed it, but it was a good struggle, and we finished in second place. This year we had more chances, and Luca and I, well, we were better than last year.
Un po' di fortuna, un po'.
And this time,
io e Luca
we've got the title.
Diciamo affiatati ancora di più e è arrivato il titolo.
Well, championship then goes to Luca Capellari and Fabrizio Golin. We hope you've enjoyed everything we brought you on the LG Super Racing weekend, not just the GTs and the FIA GTs themselves, but European Touring Car Championship and the Formula Renault, both the V6s and the 2000s. Join us again in Dubai for the final round of the season. New circuit, new challenges, same cast. We look forward to seeing you there. Always the best racing here on Eurosport. Thank you for joining me, David Harmon, this evening. Join David Leslie and Marlon Haven in Dubai. See you soon. Bye-bye.